Hello, I'm Elias Pisot, and the process of choosing a favorite book is something heavily ignored in the world of intellectual practices. But I would argue that it's one of the healthiest, best things that you can do for your intellectual well being and also for your future intellectual growth. So you might be asking, what is your favorite book? What argument do you have to back this claim up? Well, my favorite book is kind of irrelevant, really. It's a little Romanian book called Student Dima from 7th grade by like Mikhail Drumesh. Nobody knows about it. It probably hasn't been translated to like any other languages. It's niche, it's personal to me, but it is very, very good, long, and kind of chunky, intellectually speaking. So, how do you select a favorite book? Well, I just went over the three main criteria. One, it needs to be very, very niche. If you choose Don Quixote or Marcel Proust's In Search of Lost Time or Harry Potter, then you probably won't be very happy about your choice because, like a billion other people, chose that exact same book. It needs to be different in order for you to feel good about having chosen that book. The second piece of criteria is that it needs to be something very, very personal and important to you. This book talks about like the areas around my house. I live in Bucharest. This like story takes place most of it in Bucharest. That's why I like it. It actually references things that I can literally point to out of my window, from my window. It's insane. It's like a really, really good book, but that seems to have been written for me. Because I can literally do like this and feel are from lived experience what this guy is trying to tell me. If you're American and you read Proust, and for example, he talks about a rainy day in Paris, then you probably won't understand the full meaning of that because maybe you have never gone to Paris if you're American. But if you read like Walt Whitman, a really like niche Walt Whitman book, that is, not like Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer or whatever, and can actually tell what he's talking about when he references a lake or a swamp or a river. You can look out your window, see one, and actually tell that he's kind of probably talking about something similar that you can see in the present, in your current generation. Then that's the emotional little bond that you'll create with that book. It needs to be niche in order for you to not feel bad or too unoriginal about having chosen it. But it also needs to be something that you can relate to, which is very hard to find because most popular literature, most popular books are so popular because they have elements, they have stories and characters and descriptions of the environment that people can very obviously relate to. Of course, Harry Potter probably doesn't have so many realistic things that gets the reader so in a state of relatability, but it does use the imagination in a way that the reader could find themselves wanting to use their own imagination. That's why it's so popular, because it represents some concepts that everybody would have wished they would have created, wishes that they could read more of. That's why there are like 10 books and are still continuing and they're still continuing to write more. Those are the two main criteria. There are two more that are not as important. You can choose to you can choose a book without like looking too in depth in, into these like two things. But it is important to note. One, it needs to be a chunky book, in my opinion. If your book is like this, then you probably won't be spending a lot of time reading it. My book, for example, is not that long. It's like 500 pages. It's longer than the usual like Romanian novel. But that also means that yes, I don't finish it as fast. but I also get a lot more time to kind of touch, to look at, to read my favorite book. That's really important, in my opinion, because if you spend like an hour a day and if you can finish your book in a week, then what are you going to do in that week? Like, be very honest. If you read your favorite book in like a year, if your favorite book is Anna Karenina or War and Peace or any like Russian literature, then you're going to have a very great time because you have a lot of time, a lot of stuff to actually read. And the other piece of criteria is for the author to be really good. For example, Mikhail Drumesh, which is like the author of my favorite book, also wrote some other very amazing works, like An Invitation to Dance, it's called, and The Letter of Love, whatever, Love Letter. Nobody has heard of these books, but I have like looked into them and also found a similar quality in them. It needs to be a good author, a chunky book that you can read and reread and whatever, spend a lot of time reading it. But most importantly, it needs to be something personal to you, something you can relate to, something that you can understand on a deep primitive level. And, in my opinion, it needs to be something niche. Because if you choose something that's too popular, too well known, too loved, then your love for it will seem a bit more redundant. I'll see you later.